There is an African proverb that says, if you understand the beginning well, the end will not trouble you. Welcome to the She is Africa podcast. My name is Sarah V, and on this show, I talk with inspirational African female creatives about culture, vision, and everything in between. In today's episode, I'm talking to Cynthia Andrew. She's an attorney by day and a blogger by night. She was raised in Cameroon, but lives in New York City. She has organically built an online presence across social media platforms and has leveraged that growth into collaborations in the travel, fashion, and lifestyle industries. Welcome, Cynthia.
Thanks for having me.
So, you're also known as Simply Sin on social media. That's across your social media platforms, right?
Yes, I finally was able to get some consistency with that.
And how did you come across that name?
That was actually just always something I'd used from, I think I started using it in college, and it was my first email. Like, even when I created my first Gmail, it was Simply Sin. And when I started my blog, I was originally called Addicted to Etsy because my very first blog was about all the things I loved about this website. I was addicted to Etsy for a while, and as my blog evolved, as I realized that I wanted to share more than just Etsy, I decided to just have a platform that was simply me, and so I just went with Simply Sin. I waited, I think, about 2 years for the domain to free up.
Yeah.
And then I got the domain, and that's kind of how it worked out.
So I know you're from Cameroon. Can you talk a little bit about your culture and how that influenced you getting into the travel industry?
So, I guess background. I was born to Cameroonian parents in Silver Spring, Maryland.
Yeah.
And when I was about 5 or so, I returned and actually, went to school in Cameroon. I went through most primary school. I went through boarding school, and only returned really for college.
Okay.
Yeah, Cameroon has always been a large part of my life, and I think when, especially at a young age, you do the back and forth thing and you're exposed to travel, it can become quite addictive. You become addicted to the concept of exploring different cultures, meeting new people, eating different food. There's a lot about the fact that I am African and born in Cameroon that has led me to love to travel and that sort of thing.
So can you talk a little bit about your travels or one of the greatest experiences you had?
I think the experience that had the most impact, and it's going to sound cliche, and it's not necessarily the best place I've been to, but it holds a very important place in my heart.
Yeah.
And it was when I went to study abroad in Paris. There was so much about me doing that trip. It was my first real solo venture out there. It was just me getting on the plane. I didn't know anyone else who was going to be in the program. I didn't know who I was going to be living with, and something about that trip really, I guess it helped me get out of my fear of change. It helped me get out of my fear of, stepping into the unknown.
Mm-hmm.
And I just had such great experiences in that trip. I met some amazing people who became my lifelong friends and became a support system of sorts. And so I would say Paris, and this is, separate and apart from all the things that make Paris a beautiful destination or that make it a place that people love to go to. I think it was just the perfect time. It was the right kind of experience. I grew up a lot over the course of the trip.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I would say that was a very important trip for me.
Talking a little bit about your travels, do you travel alone or do you travel in a group? How do you go about traveling majority of the time?
I've done variations of travel. I would say more recently, a lot of my travel is with my husband. He's like my silent partner, silent but solid partner who is usually there, just not seen. But I also have traveled quite a bit, especially when I was younger. I traveled quite a bit solo. I would literally save as much money as I could, and if I found a discount ticket, I would buy it. And I especially that time I did a lot of Europe. I did Paris. I did a year where I worked in London. I did Brussels. So I went to quite a few places by myself. I've also done group trips. I've done a few. Mm-hmm. Group trips are always tricky because you're just balancing different personalities, and you kind of prepare yourself mentally a little bit different when you're going on a group trip, which means you have to be ready to give up some amount of control, something that, as a solo traveler, you have so much control about how fast you go, how slow you go, where you stop, where you don't stop. So, solo, group, couple travel, they're all quite very different.
And you prefer the solo travel, the group travel, or you and your husband?
No, I actually think it's destination specific sometimes.
Yeah.
So, for example, I recently went to Bali, and there were so many aspects of that trip which, I enjoyed, and I went with my husband. It was brilliant. But we spent a lot of the trip kind of thinking about some of our friends who we thought would have been really great to have there to have a co-experience or, experience certain things with. Yeah. So, and while we were there, we were actually able to meet up with some social media friends. So I've kind of followed and known some people on social media, and we connected, and then we got to spend a little bit of time together, and that was a lot of fun. So it's always, there are certain times when you really just want to have quiet time. There are certain trips where I actually, may prefer to just get up early and do me. I mean, I travel to a destination with my husband, but it just makes more sense that there's something I want to do that he may not necessarily enjoy. So I would just get up and do it.
Has your culture influenced the type of places that you travel to?
I don't know. I mean, I have to say I was born in the U.S. because my parents they were going to school here, and they were working here, and at some point, decided to return back to Cameroon. But I guess because they had some of that exposure, they made sure that we were exposed to quite a lot of different things. So I've never felt like there's any destination I don't want to go to. The world to me is all amazing. And in spite of some of the sad and horrible stories you hear about different parts of the world or different regions, to me that has just never seemed like a deterrent to going to these places. And also I have to say, being Cameroonian, and I don't know how many people know this, but there's quite a lot of diversity in Cameroon. We have so many tribes. I'm not even going to say how many. I know it's well over 50, but I don't want to misquote it. We speak so many different languages and dialects. We're bilingual in terms of the official languages. We've got French and English. So we were colonized by the Germans, and then the British, and then the French. All that different culture kind of seeps into our culture, whether we wanted to or not. And so I would say the fact that, and even beyond that, Cameroon also is, there's probably more Christian, but just as much, we have a huge Muslim population. So being Cameroonian, being exposed to that level of diversity has just made me always excited to see how other people live and explore their lives. I want to go to Asia and Australia and Europe and South America and Central America and Africa, and the world is just all of it to me is beautiful.
One piece of advice that you can give someone who's interested in starting to travel or starting a travel blog?
I guess that the question, it may go to intent. So do you want to start a travel blog to document your travels, or do you want to start a travel blog as a business? So depending on what your intent is, you will probably go about it in different ways. If your intent is really just documenting for yourself and your friends and all that, then, by all means, there's so many platforms. You don't have to wait. You can just start, take your pictures, load them, edit. You could make it nice, but I think if you're talking about travel blogging as a business, that requires a lot of education. I would say you would have to get familiar with, the content that's out there. You probably want to be familiar with the travel industry itself, who the players are. And then you want to make sure that your content is up to par. I mean, in terms of your images, your video, there is so much competition that it's really hard to get away with what was probably acceptable 5 years ago, because now everyone's really working at an almost professional type level. When you see content, you see people creating content from solely their cell phones that look better than some TV shows because they take it that seriously. They invest in the equipment, they invest the time, they invest in the software. So take a minute, think about why you're starting a blog, and then that will help you figure out what you need, how you need to go about it, and what you need to do.
And how did you get started working with brands and collaborating? How was that process?
It's interesting because in the very beginning, especially as relates to travel, I would just do outreach, like I'm going on a trip, I'll reach out and be like, I think I could provide this. I have a small, tiny platform, but I would love to share with my platform whatever, service or thing that you do. And if I didn't reach out, sometimes I would just do it. So like in the very, very beginning, I was writing reviews on things like TripAdvisor. When I have time, I still go to TripAdvisor and write reviews. And then I was writing reviews of my experiences and hotel stays and just cultural experiences. I would write that all up. So I think I'd gotten to a point where there was quite a bit of stuff either on my blog or on my Instagram that showed that I had a natural interest in this area. And nowadays, agents and the people in the travel sector, they go through Instagram and they go through the internet looking for people that they can connect with to do collaborations with.
Yeah.
So I'm lucky enough where I'm at a point where, because it was so obvious based on the content that I had been doing for free, I now have people who may reach out to me and say, let's work on an actual sponsored piece of content. Let's collaborate on a paid partnership. So sometimes you have to do it for free or reach out and get yourself to the place where, the tables kind of turn.
You have a lot of followers on Instagram. How do you build up like a tribe, a following?
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, building a following it's quite a bit of work, and probably much more now than it was in the beginning. I'm lucky because I wasn't exactly an early adopter. If we have to say that Instagram is now in cycle 5, I probably got in around cycle 2.5 or between 2 and 3. So I wasn't the first, but I was semi-early. And in the earlier iterations of Instagram, it was really about, I think there was a real excitement about, finding either people that looked like you or had similar interests to you. And one of the best ways to do that was with hashtags. And so I did a lot of hashtags in the beginning. I looked for people that I thought would, that I found interesting, and I created relationships with them. And by relationships, I mean, I would comment, I would chat, I would send messages, I would check out their blogs. A lot of back and forth. And I think back then it almost led more naturally to not only to finding people, but to having people find you. I would say now that Instagram's algorithm has changed, it does require, much of the same, but I think you really have to make your content smart and unique and amazing, because even if someone follows you, if they're not liking your stuff constantly, then they may stop seeing you. And before it was like, I used to see everyone who I followed, and now it's because it was chronological. So if I signed on at 10 a.m. and you posted at 10 a.m., I would see you.
Yeah.
But now it's, Instagram kind of decides what content to push to me. So I make a very conscious effort to engage with people who, I know follow me for a reason, but maybe, for some reason have not been able to see my recent content. And I use Instagram stories a lot. I think I would encourage Instagram stories as a good way for getting yourself out there. But yeah, it's a lot of work. It's really hard to say, oh, if you just do this 10 times and do that 10 times and do that 10 times, then you'll be good.
Yeah.
I say don't give up. If you put out really good content, people will find you. If you focus on your content and focus on engagement, true engagement, and true engagement means, actually responding to people when they leave you a comment, when they send you a DM, not just responding, but, going to their page to maybe find out what they're about, send them a personalized message so that they feel a real connection to you. Those are all little things that help.
How do you balance, because you're an attorney as well, so how do you balance that and then traveling and also engaging with your followers on Instagram and then posting content? Can you talk a little bit about balance?
To be honest, I try not to think about it too much, because sometimes when you think about things too much, you scare yourself, or you could get paralyzed. The best thing to do is just to do, which means I'll get up in the morning, and a lot of the time I may do like a quick check-in, just do a quick scroll through.
Yeah.
And if I have content to post, I usually post it around then. And then I switch modes, and I'm in work mode. And when I'm in work mode, that's usually all I'm focusing on. If I take maybe a break, I may touch base, but, depending on the kind of work day I'm having, I may not be really able to touch base. And then when I check out from my day job, then I turn my blogger hat back on, and I go and I try to catch up on comments. I try to catch up on DMs, try to load my stories, make sure all my content is loaded. I sit down and I get on the computer and, edit and write my blog posts. If I have to stay up till midnight or whatever, I'll do that. It really comes to being organized. I try to maximize my weekends, do all my photo shoots and photos on the weekends. I am lucky. I am blessed. I have a husband who's an amazing partner, who takes my photos, who helps me capture video, who helps me edit when needed. So I have to say I'm not doing this completely alone. I know some people do it all alone, and God bless them. But I would say that there is a level or a point that you get to, especially when you start to look at this as a business and you start to have, collaborations with big brands that have expectations around deliverables and deliverable dates and, very specific contracts. When you get to that level, it's really necessary to have, if it's an intern, if it's an assistant, if it's a friend, if it's, a boyfriend, if it's your mother. I mean, I've met, I know several Instagram people whose parents take their photos, whose parents help them edit. And I'm not talking about, 16-year-olds. I'm talking about, 20s, 30s, who have, their dads help them out with their social media. So whoever it is who is just as passionate as you are, or who understands your passion and is willing to help out, leverage that. It could be it could be a variety of people, but it does really get hard to do it alone when you get to a certain level.
So, looking back on your experience so far, is there anything that you wish you knew in the beginning?
I wish I had gotten on Instagram earlier. There's a lot of things that really you only get better at with practice.
Yeah, that's true.
And I would say that I feel like I had a little bit more time then than I do now, and I wish what I did during that time, when I actually had more time, was work on my skill set. And some very important skill sets for bloggers are photo editing and video editing. Video is an amazing space, and I don't mean video as in YouTube videos, even though YouTube is still a great space. I mean just having video content that you could put across platforms is really great. So I wish I'd honed my video editing skills. I wish I'd spent a little bit more time with Photoshop, even on like WordPress and doing web design. I wish I'd worked a little bit more on that. Of course, you could, either hire or ask a friend to help, but it's always nice to be somewhat self-sufficient. It's always best if you yourself know how to do it, just in case of an emergency, you can get down and do it, and you don't have to wait for someone else to either help you with your photo editing or with your video editing.
So are those things that you hire out, or do you do it yourself?
No, I don't. I do them myself, but I'm slow and not at the level I would love to be. But I don't have the time to sit down and really work up my skills. There will be a time, especially for anyone who's looking to grow their platform, there will be a time where you will be so busy, you won't have time to okay, today I'm going to learn the skill set of layering and doing this and doing that on Photoshop. So if you're at a point in time where you're just starting and it's not as hectic yet, work on your skill set. Down the road, it would be so amazing. Okay. You wouldn't take, I don't know how long I take to get it. I take way too long to put stuff together.
I want to talk a little bit too about you being an attorney, because I know there is, as African people, our parents, well, I feel like majority of us, our parents are really strong about the traditional way of finding success. Do you becoming an attorney, was that for you, or was it for your parents, or culturally?
To be fair to them, it was for me, but it was because I really did feel that I felt like there were mainly two options. Yeah. It's not that they tried to limit my options. My parents were really great, but they were examples of my father being a lawyer and my mom being an MBA. I really thought about it was business school, law school, med school. Those were really kind of the options. My sister went to business school, did her MBA. I went to law school. And I would say that in the beginning when I got out of law school, I was a little bit jaded. Not jaded, but I found it wasn't fulfilling. I think I felt that even while I was in law school, but I was hopeful that the reality of practicing law will be different from the experience of law school. But then, I got out, and while there were some great moments being a lawyer, and I learned a lot, and I learned skills that are amazing. I always had a creative spirit, and I didn't have kind of an outlet, and so really what happened was, I think I was either a little frustrated or feeling like I wanted something different, and my husband encouraged me, and so I just started writing a blog and taking pictures and sharing pictures from my trips and telling people, oh, I think you should go to Montreal because the Jazz Fest is really great. Oh, I think you should go here. Or I think you should go on a cruise. So everything I was experiencing, I was sharing it, and it felt really good. So it's not that I don't like one, and they both serve very different purposes. We are all like most people are not just one thing.
Yeah.
We are multi-dimensional. I don't practice traditional law actually anymore. About 3 years ago, I moved into compliance space. And so I've been doing compliance work, which I actually very much enjoy, because a lot of people are like, oh, you seem to be doing so well on social media. Like, why don't you just, quit that and just do social media? I was like, I actually love my job. Like, I really enjoy my job. I enjoy my colleagues. I have projects that I'm passionate about. I have goals that I set during my job that I can't wait to accomplish. And similarly, when I'm not doing that and I'm doing my blog stuff, I'm just excited. I could never, if I was truly unhappy, this probably would have been a perfect time to be like, okay, bye.
Yeah.
But I love it. So as long as I love both of them, I'll keep doing both.
What is your top 3 airlines?
It's Etihad, Emirates, and Qatar Airways. They're all, Emirates and Etihad are, I believe, both for United Arab Emirates. They're UAE.
And what's great about those 3 that you named?
They honestly, service, comfort. One of my all-time favorite flights was on Qatar Airways. Just smooth and I like the cabins. I like the service. I like the food. The full experience, But those are my faves. I also have to shout out, like, I don't know if they're gonna make it. Virgin Atlantic. I love Virgin Atlantic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Your top 3 locations to travel to?
Montreal every summer.
Yeah.
I love Montreal. I love Paris.
Okay.
And I really like Marrakesh.
Marrakesh. And where is that?
In Morocco.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool. And then the last one is foods. Your top 3 foods.
Okay, I'm Cameroonian. So first, fufu and eru. I don't know if you know what that is, but if you don't know,
I know what
fufu
is.
Okay.
I think it might be a little bit universal.
Yes, eru. So eru is spelled E-R-U.
Yep.
Oh my God, eru is the best dish on earth. I love
and what is
eru.
it? What is it? Because it might be something that's similar. Because I'm Liberian American.
No, nobody has eru.
Really?
I love fufu and eru. My second dish would be, okay, no, it's fufu and eru.
Yep.
Roasted fish with plantains.
Okay.
Or we call it dodo. D-O-D-O.
Yep. Oh, I feel like Nigerians do too.
Yeah. So, roasted fish with dodo. And, why can't I think? All Cameroonian. Ndole. Ndole is Ndole. And I like to eat that with bobolo.
And what's that?
Bobolo it's a starchy, it's like a fermented cassava that's wrapped in leaves. And it's B-O-B-O-L-O.
Alright, so the next one is word association. So I'm going to give you a couple words and then you can, the first word or the first thing that comes to your mind once you hear the words. Freedom.
Peace.
Home.
Mom.
Entrepreneur.
Aspiration.
Travel.
Happiness.
Africa.
Home.
Alright, cool.
Yeah.
Can you tell me about an African female creative that you follow on social media using She is Africa as a template describe her using one word.
So I follow Zim or Zimazim on Instagram, also known as the founder of Travel Noir. I follow her because she's like an amazingly intelligent woman with such focus and dedication, who has really changed the way we see Black people in travel, and not just the way we see ourselves in travel, but the way the world sees us. I think her impact is beyond anything that we can even see at this moment. I think 10 years from now, people would talk back to the time when she created the platform Travel Noir. It did so much for me, so I love Zim. I think she answers every message, and it's so personal. She's great. She is everything.
That's great. I like that. And that is the end.
Yeah. Just check me out on Instagram. My handle is Simply Cyn. That's SIMPLYCYN. I'm also on Twitter. I am Simply Cyn. And you have my blog, which I really hope you would check out. It has the best of my content, from fashion to travel to music to other women that I love and projects, and that is simplycyn.com.
Great. Thank you so much for being on the She is Africa podcast.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate it too.
All right, so thank you for listening to this week's episode of the She is Africa podcast. If you love this episode, then tell us. We're on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at She is Africa. See you next week.